City of Charleston Councilman Stephen Bowden is ready to get to work to tackle issues facing District 10 and the rest of the city of Charleston. I speak exclusively with Councilman Bowden for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Councilman Stephen Bowden, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Quintin, thanks as always for having me.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome, that is. And officially, congratulations to you.
Thank you so much. It's been a whirlwind, especially during the meeting the other night. But I'm looking forward to serving.
Where were you emotionally? I'm sitting really right next door to City Hall, but where were you emotionally on that night?
It was really surreal to stand on that stage in that room. I mentioned in my remarks that night that standing in a room like that with that history and this city's history, you can really feel the weight of it, and the weight of the decisions that are going to be made over the next 4 years. And I don't at all take that lightly. And so it was really surreal standing up there, and then I sort of crashed right back to earth with a 5.5-hour meeting, tackling some pretty big issues right off the bat. But it's really great, and I'm loving already. I'm getting so much feedback from the community about things that they're interested in, want to see done. Whether they like my communication style so far or not, that kind of stuff is really great. I'm loving the back and forth, and it's gonna be a great 4 years.
What do you want to communicate to the constituents of District 10?
That I am here for them. That's the only reason I ever would have considered doing this, is to show up every day for work just like I do in my career, ready to serve. And that is that's my goal for the next 4 years, is just being available day and night, making sure my information is out there, making sure that I'm involving all the stakeholders in the decision-making process. So whether you are somebody who lives in the neighborhood and has out here in West Ashley and has an opinion on what's going on in King Street, or whether you're a business owner on King Street and want to weigh in on what's going on, we're a big community, and even though I represent this small part of West Ashley, we got to be looking out for what's going on in the entire city. So I'm serving here, I'm serving there, and we certainly want to be a big part of what's going on in the city for the next 4 years.
On that particular stage at City Hall, inside council chambers on Tuesday, you basically said that, hey, we have tremendous challenges in this city. Where are those challenges in District 10?
They're exactly what we've known they are for some time now. So it's flooding, and it's a different type of flooding than we're worried about downtown. It's very particular to the geography and history and development practices in this area. And so that's really, just like I talked about every day when I was knocking on doors in August during the campaign, it's the same stuff now. It's focusing on making sure that we are getting a handle on the development that's coming now and in the future. So we need to make sure, over the next year, maybe more, that we are being very conscientious as we go into a period where we're rethinking our zoning policy. It's making sure that we are bringing smarter development to this area, because unquestionably we need some commercial development. And we just have to make sure that we are balancing that with the interests of folks who already live here, including myself. I can go outside my street right now and look and see a new commercial development that's coming in. And it makes me a little bit nervous, certainly. Just reflexively, it makes my neighbors nervous. But in some meetings with the city, I think we're really on the right track in terms of thinking about these issues, and it's only going to get better in the future as long as we are making sure that this, like I said, rethinking zoning policy is working for the people who already live here.
Well, let me jump right into the issues. How do you want to develop, or how do you want to bring equitable economic development into District 10?
It's a great question. And I think that's part of what the city's already doing, hiring somebody like Amber Johnson to focus on equity, establishing an equity commission that will, sort of make sure that we are focusing on these issues as we have all these other things to think about. And so, specifically, I think of equity in a lot of different ways, right? There's equity in terms of race. There's equity in terms of, making sure that we have, women-owned businesses, making sure that folks in the district have the opportunity to open mom and pop shops. And so, equity can have a lot of meanings. We talked about that at the meeting the other night. It can be sort of a choose your own adventure to some extent. But I certainly think equity extends to making sure that we are not pricing out our own people who already live here and would love that opportunity to improve their economic position by opening a business and serving their neighbors.
How many minority-owned businesses are there in District 10?
I don't know. Just sort of, I guess based on my own lived experience, I would think there's probably not as many as we might hope for. I think that's sort of true across the board, and that's part of what we need to do better as a city.
Now, moving over to another issue, how do you advocate for strategies to improve the flow and safety of traffic in heavily congested roadways such as Highway 61 in West Ashley, including the installation of advanced traffic control devices and other methods that can actually fit within the existing right-of-ways in your district?
So we're going to have to forge great relationships with the county, with the Department of Transportation. Really, there can be a lot of pushback when you suggest something like a stoplight to make sure that the area around a school is safe, or it's safe for people turning onto major highways like 61 is, and is going to be more and more packed as development increases further up between us and Somerville. Which we can sort of see every day with the amount of land they're clearing, already putting stuff up. It is development practices along 61. We've got to be very smart about what each development is going to put on the roads in terms of additional traffic. The commercial development we love to see can also be burdensome in terms of the traffic that it brings along. So we've got to be careful about that going forward. We've got to balance that with the limited infrastructure we're able to build sometimes, particularly as a city. Like I said, we've got to rely a lot on the county, a lot on DOT. And so, we've got to increase, I think, a lot along the Beast Ferry corridor has a lot of opportunity for growth in terms of commercial development. But we only have so much infrastructure, so it's got to be balanced with things like extending Glen McConnell to make sure we've got some sort of bypass basically around the busiest part of 61.
And what is the current traffic flow in District 10?
Oh, it's congested. I see these COVID numbers every day, and I start to wonder if the number of people who are out sick is making it a little bit easier to get around these past few weeks. But anytime school's in session, we're sitting in traffic, and that's something that has got to be improved. As there are long planned developments that are coming online that are fully approved. They're just waiting to break ground. And so we've got to work quickly on these issues.
The city will work with Charleston County to implement an overlay district for properties fronting along Ashley River Road between Magwood and Church Creek to emphasize reduction of residential densities and encourage new business development along the corridor.
Yeah, it's a great idea. Again, we've got to be careful and make sure we have a really good handle on what that's going to do as far as imposing an additional traffic burden. But out this way, we've got the TIF district where any new commercial development is going to fund drainage solutions. So that's part of why I put such an emphasis on additional commercial development. out this way, is because that's ultimately how we are going to dig ourselves out of the hole that we've created. So, commercial development's great. We have just got to be so careful about how we're doing it because of the problems we've already created for ourselves.
Now, how do you create a dedicated funding stream for affordable housing development in District 10 through zoning and other planning initiatives?
Well, I think out here the primary focus has got to be on the flooding. So we've got to make sure that when we are dedicating funding sources, that that affects everybody. High income, low income. When the floodwaters come, there's no amount of income that's going to save you from that. Now, what we can do as an entire city is really encourage some denser areas where the infrastructure already exists. That's in the city plan, which is fantastic. We can really, when we're looking at this elevation-based zoning that's being talked about, we can also consider changing some of the zoning that has made it so incredibly hard to build in certain areas of our city that are suitable for building. I think about a meeting with Don Cameron and Art Milligan at the Housing Authority, and what their plans are going forward, and it's really incredible, and it's redoing a lot of the properties that exist now to build them bigger and denser, and mix in varying levels of income in areas so that we are not concentrating poverty. We are making sure that there is housing available for folks who work in this city and right now can't afford to live any closer than Somerville or Goose Creek. That is not an acceptable situation. And really, even if folks who work downtown and don't have the means to afford the prices now, if they live out here, they're still going to have to pay transportation costs. And so, really building downtown where it's denser, where they are not going to have to spend quite so much until we get other transportation solutions in place is probably a better scenario ultimately for their wallets. And so I think that's typically a better solution, just for people long term to be able to not only move downtown but be able to stay downtown.
And I want to get to that in just a second. I actually have some questions about that as well. But how do you further limit fill and build construction efforts in areas of District 10 vulnerable to future flooding and potential marsh mitigation?
I think it all comes down to how we redo the zoning code. And so ideally with an elevation-based zoning, we're finding suitable areas where we sort of eliminate the need to fill in areas and build up, because we just say, you know what, you can't build there. It's not ever going to be suitable land to build on. I think the stormwater standards have gone a long way, and we'll continue to refine those, and there's a process in place to do that. So I think between those two things, we can, I don't think we necessarily need a standalone fill and build ordinance. We can just build it into the building codes that we're already putting in place.
Yes, sir. Okay, what are those redefined stormwater standards that are ideal for District 10 right now, or will be the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, I think they're pretty great as they are. So the whole key here is keeping water on a property for a certain amount of time, so that it's not inundating waterways, overflowing those, like Church Creek, and ultimately coming up into houses. And that is going to get harder as we go along. I think it's pretty clear that, I'm no scientist, but, from what I've read, from what I've studied, it seems pretty clear to me that we are getting increasingly heavy rainfalls, that, hurricanes are becoming wetter, that they are rapidly intensifying before they make landfall. I think we've seen that repeatedly, particularly along the Gulf Coast. And so that's, those are the big fears we have. And so we're going to have to continue to look and make sure that the standards that we've set are adequate, I think there's pretty high confidence right now that they are, as long as we can get the other piece of the zoning in place to say, that there are suitable areas and unsuitable areas for building. So once we get both of those into place, I think we'll be in pretty good shape going forward. And then we can focus as much on the infrastructure as we are on the flooding piece in terms of new development. But we'll have to keep a close eye on it going forward. No question about that.
And where are those unsuitable areas to build in District 10?
It is, just walking around the area. Particularly, I'm a big golfer, so on the golf course, you can tell almost from hole to hole that this is good dry land, and this other hole is constantly underwater. Right, so there's part of the golf course that goes by the Bridgepoint townhomes that they had to tear down. Obviously, we know just from topographic maps and lived experience that we got to be real careful about building there. And there is some building going up, and that makes me nervous. And just 400 yards away. And those are the kind of issues that we need to be much more careful about going forward, and that we have all the power in the world as a city to define. So those are the kind of things that we need to focus on, keep a very close eye on, and they'll make a huge difference going forward.
And I know, obviously, I want to talk to you about transportation in depth, and obviously, as a council member too, you are actually involved with the entire city. Where should the city promote the creation of additional park and ride routes, such as Hop Shuttle, and obviously to connect those shuttles to areas with key job centers here in the city?
So I've sort of long thought that we should be trying to do a better job of limiting the amount of traffic downtown with these sorts of ideas. I don't know the exact locations that they ought to go. But we need more solutions rather than every single person who goes downtown takes their car. We are never going to have enough parking to support that. We are never going to have enough areas to build to support that. So we need some of those in basically the neck area. We need some of those out here. We need some of those on James Island and other parts of the city that are a little bit far flung, as some people like to say, and it's just going to take a commitment and really increased routes than we have right now. Things like when the rapid transit bus line come into effect, and it always seems to take a little bit longer than we want things to really come to fruition. But once we have something like that in place as it's planned now, getting that extended out this way, getting that extended out to Johns Island, then we can really talk more about how we keep the cars out of the most congested areas as they are now. In addition, we're basically pursuing sort of a plan to have almost city centers in each area of the city. And so, the West Ashley Revitalization Committee has been working very hard in certain parts of West Ashley, including getting some office space and things out this way in Bees Ferry area. And so, if we're keeping traffic from moving all in the same direction at the same times, then we're getting part of the way there as well.
Yeah, and it's a good way to go out there because there's tropical smoothie out there, which I love. I just had that today. But let me ask you, how do you incentivize transit-oriented development and affordable housing development along the future Low Country rapid transit route and other key public transportation corridors?
Well, the market will take care of that to some extent. And that's important to point out, that in government, we can't regulate our way to everything that we want, right? We're never going to have enough money to spend on affordable housing. We're never going to have enough money to spend on infrastructure. And so to some extent, we need to think really hard about what we can how we can help the market work, and do some of this work for us. I think that, I still think of myself sometimes as a little bit on the younger side. Although I look at some of the folks that were at the meeting the other night, they were in college, and I just kind of thought about how my back aches, and I'm getting a little bit old. But that generation, even my generation, love public transportation. Love taking Ubers and these sorts of things. Love biking. All sorts of alternate forms of transportation that my parents' generation wouldn't have ever considered. When they would just hop in their car and go somewhere. I think we tend to look at maybe other ways to get around, and so that's going to be really popular once the transportation is in place to support that kind of lifestyle. And so, like I said, I think it's important to note that the market will take care of some of this. But we can certainly provide zoning incentives. And I think that's really the key. If we're making it easier to build along those routes, then building will occur.
Yes, sir. How should future increases to maximize residential densities be conditional within the zoning code so that a certain percentage, that is, of new units would be reserved for affordable housing?
This is an interesting debate, and something that I'm trying to read more about to kind of wrap my head around what's how we tackle this. And my kind of thinking now is it's almost an all of the above approach, right? We can create things. We can incentivize things like the accessory dwelling units. We can create sort of a zoning changes that liberalize the market a little bit and allow it to work, allow them to build some more in areas that are suitable for it. Because like I said, we're never going to have all the money we need to build all the affordable housing we need. And so I think it's a combination of the fee and lieu system that we've got now, as well as promoting the building in the areas where the city plan right now has already identified that would be suitable areas, and that's generally downtown, central business district area, and we need to increase the housing stock. It seems like every single time there's a report in the paper, or the Realtors Association issues something, we see these staggering challenges that we have in terms of we just haven't kept up with the amount of housing that we need for the growth that's occurring. That's what drives prices up, and that's the I'd call it a spiral, but you tend to think of spirals as going down. So it's the rocket ship we're on in terms of housing prices, and so it's an all of the above approach, and it's something that just as important as living with water in the city. We've got to be able to live in this city, and so we've got to do everything at one time.
What is the housing stock right now in District 10?
It's certainly not as much as I heard that nobody wants to see additional development. Additional development is coming, so we've got something like potentially up to 3,500 new homes coming in the Long Savannah and extension of Village Green. Right. So I don't know exactly what it is right now, although I know it's increased dramatically since the last time they did a census. So parts of Grand Oaks have been built out, particularly a lot of apartment complexes and things, and it's good to have a mixture of all kinds. You never want a community that's all the same thing. Diversity is a wonderful thing in terms of innovation and pushing a city forward. But we're going to have to keep up out here too. And I think some of these developments are, as long as they are, I'm skeptical of them. I've been pretty clear about that in the past, I think. But as long as they are, as long as we're carefully watching it, as long as we are making sure that they are built according to the standards that we have put into place, as long as they're planned that way and actually built that way, then we will be, putting together the, sort of the pieces to the whole the whole region's housing issues. But this is going to be something that we need to cooperate with the county on. This is going to be something that we need to cooperate with North Charleston and Mount Pleasant and the other municipalities, because all of the housing can't be built in Charleston. And I think everybody recognizes that, but we are going to have to think of ourselves a lot more as a region, I think, than we have in the past.
And my last question is this: in what way should the city continue to coordinate with neighboring jurisdictions, that is, to implement economic development recommendations, and particularly in your district?
So, like I said, I think we have got to, sort of let go of the idea that we're each, so distinct that we can't work together. We've got to be, we've got to keep each other up to date on what we're doing. I think we've got to be a little bit more careful than, sort of what's going on out in my area, which is, North Charleston kind of jumping the river and building on this side of the Ashley River, with very little regard to what that is going to do for our infrastructure, for our quality of life. And so things like that are not a good start. But, there's always ways to fix things going forward. And so, we've just got to approach each other, in a spirit of camaraderie, recognizing that ultimately we're all in this together. So we can all do our own thing and we can all fail together, or we can work together and we can succeed together. And I know which of those paths that I would like to take.
And unfortunately, I'm losing sun over here on Broad Street. But let me ask you one last question. What is the quality of life in District 10 right now?
Quintin, it's great out here. I love this community. I am so excited. In a few months, my wife is going to bring a child into this world. And it's going to be a great community to raise our son. And, we've got challenges like anywhere else, but, if as a city, if you're not growing, if you're not, moving forward, then you're dying. So these are good problems to have. We have just got to be a little more careful than we have in the past to make sure that we are balancing our growth needs with our quality of life needs. And I think that, we're on the right track for that. And that's what I intend to focus on every day that I'm in this office.
And where is the balance right now?
Well, I meet my friends on the golf course basically every Saturday. So there are worse things in the world. We've got businesses coming up. We have got people's housing prices are going up, which is beneficial, certainly. But then again, if you want to buy something bigger in the district, it's not quite so easy. So there are certainly challenges. But all in all, it is a wonderful place to live. I would encourage anybody to take a look at this area, and there are things that I plan to do to make it even better, a little bit more, just sort of new and different things than we've had out here in the past. I guess maybe just stay tuned on that, and we'll see what we can get done in 4 years.
Councilman Stephen Bowden, thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thanks, Quintin. Hope you have a great weekend.
Likewise.